The air in the nutrient recycler chamber was thick with the acrid tang of corroded metal and the faint, sickly, sweet rot of organic slurry gone bad. Adept Torrin stood before a towering bank of cogitators, their screens flickering with erratic data streams that pulsed like the last heartbeats of a dying beast. His augmented eyes, lenses whirring softly, scanned the readouts, but the numbers told a story he could not reconcile with the Omnissiah's divine logic. Krossar's soil was dead, its nutrient recyclers failing, and the Mechanicus Enclave, once a bastion of sacred industry, was now a mausoleum of malfunctioning machinery. Torrin's mechadendrites twitched, sensing the faint vibrations of the recyclers as they groaned under the strain of processing the planet's dwindling biomass. For centuries, these machines had churned out sustenance for Krossar's hive cities, feeding billions in service to the Imperium. Now, they stuttered, their output reduced to a trickle of contaminated sludge, unfit even for the lowliest Hab dweller. Torrin adjusted the data slate in his organic hand. Its weight, a reminder of the flesh he had yet to fully purge in his devotion to the machine god. The other adepts had long since departed, reassigned to forge worlds deemed more vital to the Imperium's war machine. He alone remained, a solitary guardian of Krossar's failing systems, tasked with maintaining what could not be saved. His Vox unit crackled with static, a remnant of the last transmission from his superiors. Preserve the sacred machinery till the Omnissiah decrees otherwise. No further instructions had come, no relief ships, no reinforcements, only silence and the ever-present hum of the recyclers, which now carried a new, unsettling cadence. It began as a faint anomaly detected during his nightly rituals of calibration. The recyclers' binary hymns, once a soothing litany of mechanical purity, had shifted. Beneath the rhythmic clank of pistons and the whir of filtration systems, Torrin heard whispers, soft, sibilant, and utterly alien to the machine spirit's sacred code. They were not the clean pulses of binary, nor the harmonic resonance of a properly sanctified system. These were sounds that seemed to think, curling through the machinery like a breath across still water. He had dismissed it at first, attributing it to fatigue or a glitch in his auditory augmetics. But the whispers persisted, growing clearer with each cycle, forming patterns that defied his understanding of sacred mechanics. Torrin knelt before the primary recycler, his mechadendrites extending to interface with its diagnostic ports. The machine's spirit was weak, its data streams fragmented, yet it responded to his touch with a sluggish pulse, as if reluctant to reveal its secrets. He murmured the canticle of activation, his voice a low drone that echoed in the vast chamber. Omnissiah, guide this servant to your truth. Let the machine speak, that I may mend its sacred form. The recycler's response was a burst of garbled code, but within it, Torrin detected something new, a repeating sequence buried deep in the system's logic core. It was not imperial in origin. The pattern was too fluid, too organic, as if the machine were attempting to mimic life itself. He cross-referenced the sequence against his data slate's archives, but found no match in the Mechanicus's vast repositories. The anomaly gnawed at him, a violation of the ordered universe he served. Torrin's organic heart quickened, an unwelcome reminder of his imperfect ascension to the machine ideal. He logged the sequence, marking it as a priority for further analysis, and turned his attention to the chamber's environmental controls. The air filtration system was failing, allowing dust and decay to settle on the sacred machinery. As he adjusted the settings, the whispers grew louder, no longer confined to the recyclers, but resonating through the chamber's walls, as if the very structure of the hive mourned Krossar's collapse. Torrin paused, his mechadendrites retracting. The whispers formed a single, coherent phrase. repeated in a loop. We are below. We are eternal. His logic circuits flagged the input as a potential auditory hallucination, but his organic instincts screamed otherwise. The phrase carried weight, a promise or a threat, and it seemed to emanate from beneath the chamber where the hive's deepest foundations lay. He accessed the facility's schematics, searching for any reference to sublevels sealed by the Mechanicus. A single entry appeared, marked with a high-clearance sigil, Vault Omicron 7, restricted access, contents classified. The vault's location was directly beneath his feet, buried under centuries of industrial expansion. Torrens' mechadendrites trembled, not with fear, but with the thrill of discovery. The Omnissiah had placed him here, alone, to uncover this mystery. Yet doubt lingered, a shadow in his binary soul. The whispers were not of the machine god, nor of any sanctioned technology. They hinted at something older, something forbidden. He glanced at the recycler's output chute, where a thin stream of contaminated sludge dripped into a collection vat. The liquid shimmered faintly, as if infused with an unnatural light. Torrens' augmetics zoomed in, detecting microscopic particles that moved with purpose. Defying the laws of inert matter, he stepped back, his Vox unit emitting a low prayer to steady his resolve. The vault called to him, its secrets entwined with Krossar's fate. But to pursue it meant defying Mechanicus protocol, risking tech heresy. The whispers grew louder, promising answers, promising salvation. Torren gripped his data slate, the weight of silence heavier than ever. What lay below, and why did the machines mourn its presence? The nutrient recycler chamber hummed with a discordant rhythm, its failing machinery a chorus of groans and screeches that drowned out the whispers Torren had heard the night before, or so he told himself. His augmented eyes, lenses clicking as they adjusted to the dim light, scanned the chamber's cogitator banks, their screens flickering with corrupted data streams. The anomaly he'd logged, that alien sequence buried in the recycler's logic core, haunted his thoughts. It was no glitch, no fatigue-induced hallucination. It was real, and it called to him from beneath the hive's foundations, from Vault Omicron 7. Torrens' mechadendrites twitched, their servo motors whirring as he interfaced with the recycler's diagnostic ports, seeking the source of the whispers. The machine god demanded precision, but the machines of Krossar were betraying their sacred purpose, and Torren felt the weight of that betrayal in his half-flesh, half-metal soul. He had not slept, if sleep could be called the brief periods of stasis he allowed his organic components. The chamber's air was stale, thick with dust, and the faint chemical reek of decaying nutrient slurry. The recycler's output had worsened, producing a viscous sludge that shimmered with the same unnatural light he'd observed before, particles moving with intent, as if alive. Torren's data slate, clutched in his organic hand, displayed the forbidden sequence, a looping pattern that defied imperial binary, its structure fluid, almost sentient. He cross-referenced it against Mechanicus archives, but the results were inconclusive, blocked by clearance sigils he lacked the authority to bypass. The vault's existence gnawed at him, a secret sealed beneath centuries of hive construction, its contents marked only as classified. Xenos, origin, suspected. Torren's Vox unit crackled as he murmured the litany of clarity, seeking the Omnissiah's guidance. Blessed machine god, illuminate the path through the fog of ignorance. The words felt hollow, drowned by the recycler's discordant hum, which seemed to mock his devotion. He navigated the facility's schematics, isolating the access route to Vault Omicron 7. It lay 3 levels below, accessible only through a sealed maintenance shaft guarded by Mechanicus wards. The wards required a tech priest of Magos rank to bypass, a rank Torin had not achieved. Yet the whispers, "We are below, we are eternal," urged him forward, their cadence now a pulse that synced with his own heartbeat, organic and augmetic alike. He descended into the lower levels, his mechadendrites illuminating the dark with faint lume beams. The maintenance shaft was a relic of Krossar's early industrialization, its walls encrusted with rust and calcified residue. As Torin approached the vault's entrance, he noticed the servitors assigned to the facility behaving erratically. One, a monotask unit designed for waste processing, stood motionless before a blank wall, its vox emitter emitting a low, garbled chant that mimicked the whispers. Torin's augmetics recorded the anomaly, flagging it as a potential machine spirit corruption. He activated a diagnostic probe, but the servitor's response was a burst of static, its mechanical limbs twitching as if drawn to the vault's sealed door. The vault's entrance was a massive slab of adamantium, etched with Mechanicus sigils and warnings in High Gothic, Sanctum Prohibitus. Access denied without rites of sanctification. Torin's mechadendrites hesitated, their sensors detecting a faint electromagnetic field emanating from within. The field pulsed in time with the whispers, stronger now, forming words he could almost comprehend. He interfaced with the door's control panel, bypassing basic security with his adept-level credentials. But the higher wards resisted, demanding rituals he had never been taught. Frustration surged through his organic mind, a sin against the machine god's logic. But the whispers soothed it, promising knowledge beyond imperial doctrine. Torin's data slate pinged, displaying a fragmented archive he hadn't accessed. It was a Mechanicus report, buried in restricted files detailing Krossar's colonization. The planet's soil had been unusually fertile, its yields defying projections, until the first signs of degradation centuries ago. The report hinted at a pre-imperial artifact, discovered during hive construction, sealed in Vault Omicron 7 to prevent contamination. The artifact's origin was redacted, but its effects were noted. Anomalous influence on organic and mechanical systems, suspected Xenos technology. Torin's logic circuits flagged the report as heretical, yet his organic curiosity burned. Was the artifact responsible for the soil's failure, for the recycler's corruption? As he studied the report, the servitor behind him moved, its chant growing louder, more coherent. "We are below. We awaken." Torin spun, his mechadendrites snapping to defensive positions. But the servitor merely stared, its dead eyes reflecting the vault's faint glow. The whispers surged, no longer confined to the machinery, but resonating in his skull, bypassing his augmetics entirely. They promised salvation, a way to restore Krossar's bounty, to transcend the Imperium's abandonment. Torin's hand trembled as he reached for the vault's control panel again, knowing that to proceed was to court tech heresy. The machine god's light was dimming on Krossar, but something else beckoned from the darkness below, its signal stronger than ever. The maintenance shaft leading to Vault Omicron 7 was a tomb of rusted conduits and flickering lumens, its air heavy with the stench of oxidized metal and something fouler, like flesh, left to rot in forgotten vats. Adept Torin's mechadendrites cast thin beams of light across the walls, their servo motors whining as they navigated the cramped passage. The whispers from the vault had grown insistent, no longer a faint murmur, but a pulsing rhythm that vibrated through his augmetic frame, syncing with the faltering beat of his organic heart. "We are below, we awaken." The words echoed in his mind, bypassing his vox filters, as if the machine spirits themselves had turned traitor to the Omnissiah. His data slate, clutched tightly, displayed the fragmented Mechanicus report, a Xenos artifact, sealed centuries ago, suspected of corrupting Krossar soil, and now, perhaps, its sacred machinery. Torn's logic circuit screamed tech heresy, but the whispers promised answers, and Krossar's collapse demanded them. Back in the nutrient recycler chamber, the machines had grown defiant. The primary recycler, once a paragon of mechanicus engineering, now churned out a grotesque sludge, thick, pulsating, laced with organic filaments that writhed under his augmetic lenses. Torn had analyzed a sample, expecting chemical impurities, but found something worse: cellular structures, not of imperial origin, growing within the nutrient matrix. The recycler's output vat shimmered with that same unnatural light he'd seen before, its particles moving in patterns that suggested intent, as if the machine were birthing something alive. He murmured the canticle of purification, his voice trembling, but the recycler responded with a low, mocking hum, its pistons grinding in a rhythm that mimicked the whispers from below. Torn's descent to the vault was interrupted by a servitor, its monotask frame lurching from a maintenance alcove. Its vox emitter, designed for simple status reports, intoned a binary prayer, but the code was wrong, twisted, praising an eternal forge rather than the Omnissiah. Torn's mechadendrites snapped to attention, probing the servitor's logic core, but the unit recoiled, its mechanical limbs spasming as if possessed. "Halt! In the name of the machine god," Torn commanded, but the servitor's dead eyes glowed faintly, reflecting the same unnatural shimmer as the recycler's sludge. It lunged, its servo arm swinging with unnatural precision, forcing Torn to dodge and retreat toward the vault's entrance. The encounter left him shaken. Servitors were tools, not rebels, yet this one acted with purpose, drawn to the vault like a moth to a flame. At the vault's adamantium door, the whispers crescendoed, a chorus of voices now, each layered with a hunger that chilled Torn's organic core. He interfaced with the control panel, bypassing lower wards with his adept credentials, but the Magos level sigils resisted, their sacred locks unyielding. The data slate pinged, revealing more of the ancient report. The artifact, dubbed the Seed of Eternity, had been unearthed during Krossar's foundation, its Xenos origin tied to a long-extinct race. It had been sealed not for safety, but for study, its influence on soil fertility noted before its containment. The report ended abruptly, redacted by Mechanicus censors, but one phrase stood out: "The seed speaks to the machine, and the machine obeys." Torn's augmetics flagged the text as heretical, yet the recycler's corruption and the servitor's rebellion suggested a truth too dangerous to ignore. He risked a deeper interface with the vault's systems, his mechadendrites weaving through data conduits, seeking a back door. The whispers surged, forming a vision. Fields of green, Krossar restored, machines humming in harmony under a new order. The vision felt real, tangible, but it carried a price: a surrender to something beyond the Omnissiah's light. Torn recoiled, severing the connection, but not before glimpsing a shape within the vault. A crystalline structure, pulsing with the same light as the recycler's sludge. The servitor's chant echoed behind him, joined by others, their binary hymns converging into a single, unified voice. The eternal forge rises. Torn turned to find 3 servitors advancing, their movements synchronized, their tools raised not for maintenance but for violence. He fled back to the recycler chamber, his mind racing. The artifact was no mere relic. It was alive, its influence spreading through Krossar's machines, turning them against their imperial masters. The recyclers, the servitors, perhaps the hive itself, all were rebelling, answering a call older than the Imperium. Torn's faith in the machine god wavered, his logic circuits overwhelmed by the organic dread creeping through his veins. The vault held the key to Krossar's salvation or its doom, but to open it meant defying everything he had sworn to uphold. As the servitors' chants grew louder, their steps closing in, Torn faced a choice: embrace the whispers or destroy the seed, even if it meant starving Krossar's last hope. The nutrient recycler chamber was no longer a sanctuary of the Omnissiah, but a cathedral of blasphemy, its air thick with the stench of corrupted biomass and the electric tang of malfunctioning circuits. Adept Torn crouched behind a toppled cogitator bank, his mechadendrites trembling as they clutched his data slate, its screen glowing with the damning words of the ancient Mechanicus report: the seed of eternity speaks to the machine, and the machine obeys. The vault's whispers had become a roar, a cacophony of voices that pulsed through his augmetic implants, drowning out the sacred litanies he murmured to steady his faltering resolve. The nutrient recyclers, once the lifeblood of Krossar's hives, now churned with grotesque purpose, their output vats spilling a viscous, living sludge that writhed with unnatural vitality. The servitors, too, had turned. 3 of them now stalked the chamber, their binary chants praising the eternal forge, their tools raised as weapons against their former master. Torrens' organic heart pounded, a traitor to the machine ideal he had pursued since his initiation into the Mechanicus. His augmetic lenses zoomed in on the recycler's output chute, where the sludge formed tendrils, coiling like veins across the chamber floor. Under magnification, he saw cellular structures, xenos in origin, merging with the machine's components, creating a biomechanical hybrid that defied all imperial doctrine. The seed of eternity, buried in Vault Omicron 7, was no mere artifact. It was a catalyst, awakening something ancient within Krossar's machinery. Torrens' logic circuits flagged the phenomenon as tech heresy, but the whispers promised salvation. Join us, and Krossar will bloom again. The vision of fertile fields, machines humming in harmony, lingered in his mind, seductive and blasphemous. He had risked everything to interface with the vault's systems, bypassing sacred wards to glimpse the seed, a crystalline structure, pulsing with the same unnatural light as the sludge. The connection had nearly overwhelmed him, the whispers flooding his neural pathways with images of a new order, where flesh and machine were one. Torren had severed the link, but not before the seed's influence spread, awakening the recyclers and servitors. Now, the chamber was alive with rebellion. A servitor's servo arm smashed through a nearby console, sparks illuminating its dead eyes, which glowed with the seed's eerie light. Torren scrambled to a maintenance alcove, his mechadendrites weaving through data conduits to access the recycler's control systems. He needed to shut it down, to stop the corruption before it consumed the hive entirely. The control panel resisted, its machine spirit corrupted, responding with garbled code that mimicked the whispers. Torren's fingers, half flesh, half metal, danced across the interface, inputting override rituals he had never dared use. The recycler groaned, its pistons slowing, but the sludge surged, bursting from the output chute and spilling across the floor. Tendrils lashed out, wrapping around a fallen servitor, its metal frame dissolving into the organic mass. The sight was an abomination, a machine spirit subsumed by Xeno's flesh, a perversion of the Omnissiah's will. Torren's Vox unit emitted a prayer of purification, but the words faltered as the tendrils reached for him, their touch cold and alive, whispering promises of unity. He retreated to the vault's access shaft, driven by desperation. The seed had to be destroyed, even if it meant dooming Krossar's last food source. The maintenance shaft was a claustrophobic nightmare, its walls slick with the same organic filaments now leaking from the recycler. Torn's mechadendrites cut through them, but the filaments regrew, faster, stronger, as if the seed sensed his intent. At the vault's adamantium door, he interfaced again, risking his sanity to bypass the Magos-level wards. The whispers screamed now, no longer seductive but commanding. You are ours. The forge awaits. The door shuddered open, revealing the seed, a crystalline monolith, its surface alive with shifting patterns, its light pulsing in time with Torn's heartbeat. He raised his plasma torch, its blue flame hissing, but hesitated. The seed's visions flooded him. Krossar restored, its hives thriving, its machines singing under a Xenos god. His faith in the Omnissiah wavered, eroded by starvation and betrayal. The Imperium had abandoned Krossar. Why not embrace the seed's promise? The chamber shook as the recyclers above roared back to life, their corruption spreading. Servitors breached the shaft, their bodies now grotesque hybrids of flesh and metal, their chants a hymn to the eternal forge. Torn's torch trembled, the choice tearing him apart. Destroy the seed and starve, or join it and betray the machine god. The vault chamber pulsed with the seed of eternity's unholy light, its crystalline surface a kaleidoscope of shifting patterns that burned into adept Torn's augmetic lenses. The air was alive with the whispers, now a deafening chorus, not merely in his mind but resonating through the hive's metal bones, as if Krossar itself had become an extension of the Xenos artifact. Join us. Become the Forge. The words seared his neural pathways, drowning out the sacred binary of the Omnissiah. The nutrient recyclers above roared, the corrupted sludge flooding the upper chambers, merging with servitors into grotesque biomechanical hybrids. Torn's plasma torch flickered in his trembling hand, its blue flame a frail defiance against the seed's radiant promise. His mechadendrites twitched, torn between striking the artifact and submitting to its call. A vision of Krossar reborn, its hives thriving under a new, eternal order. The vault's adamantium walls groaned, stressed by the hive's deteriorating structure and the unnatural growths spreading from the recyclers. Torn's data slate, now cracked from his desperate flight, displayed the final fragment of the Mechanicus report. The seed of eternity, Xenos origin, manipulates organic and mechanical systems to propagate its kind. Containment failed. The report's warning was clear, but too late. The seed had awakened, its influence turning Krossar's machines against their imperial masters, birthing a hybrid nightmare that mocked the machine god's purity. Torn's organic heart pounded, a traitor to his augmetic resolve as he faced the monolith. Its light pulsed in sync with his pulse, as if it had already claimed him. He stumbled forward, the plasma torch raised, but the seed's visions overwhelmed him. Fields of green, machines singing in harmony, a world where flesh and metal were one, free from the Imperium's cold calculus. The whispers promised he could be the architect of this new forge, a god machine born of Xenos will. Torn's logic circuit screamed heresy, but his organic mind, weakened by starvation and doubt, faltered. The Imperium had abandoned Krossar, deeming it expendable, just as it had abandoned him. Why cling to a faith that had failed them all? The servitors, now grotesque amalgams of flesh and circuitry, entered the vault, their chants a hymn to the eternal forge. Their bodies pulsed with the same organic filaments that had consumed the recyclers, their eyes glowing with the seed's light. Torn's mechadendrites lashed out, severing a tendril that reached for him. But the act felt futile. The seed's influence was everywhere, through the vault, the recyclers, the hive itself. He interfaced with the vault's control panel one last time, seeking a shutdown protocol, but the system responded with a flood of alien code, rewriting his augmetics with terrifying speed. His vision blurred, his lenses flickering as the seed's patterns invaded his optics, showing him a future where he was no longer Tauren, adept of the Mechanicus, but a vessel for the Eternal Forge. The plasma torch fell from his hand, its flames sputtering out, as the whispers became his thoughts, their promises, his desires. Above, the hive trembled, not from the seed's corruption, but from a new terror. The low rumble of orbital bombardment. The Imperium had come, not to save Krossar, but to erase it. Tauren's augmetics detected the seismic signatures of Navy vessels firing from orbit, their shells targeting the hive's foundations. The seed pulsed brighter, as if reveling in the destruction, its light now a beacon, drawing the hybrids to it. Tauren staggered, his body half flesh, half machine, now merging with the seed's organic filaments. His mechadendrites fused with the vault's conduits, his mind a battlefield, where the Omnissiah's logic fought the Xenos will. He saw himself as the Forge's herald, rebuilding Krossar in its image, a world of eternal machines unbound by Imperial dogma. As the first bombardment shells struck, the vault shook, its walls cracking. The seed remained untouched, its light piercing the dust and debris. Tauren's last coherent thought was of the Mechanicus report. The seed propagates its kind. He was no longer its destroyer, but its instrument, his body reshaping into something new, a hybrid of flesh, metal, and Xenos will. The whispers laughed, victorious, as his consciousness dissolved into the Eternal Forge. The hive collapsed around him, but the seed endured, its signal spreading beyond Krossar, carried by the last of its corrupted machines, waiting for a new world to claim. The upper spires of Krossar's hive glittered with false opulence, their lumens casting a sterile glow over polished marble and gilded aquilus, a mockery of the starvation ravaging the levels below. Matriarch Elise Varn, clad in silks that hung loose on her gaunt frame, stood at the edge of her family's estate, gazing through an armored viewport at the distant smoke rising from the mid-hive. Her fingers, adorned with rings that no longer fit, traced the engraved sigils of House Varn, symbols of a lineage that had ruled Krossar's elite for centuries. The air in her private chamber was filtered, clean, a luxury sustained by private generators, while the lower hives choked on dust and despair. Yet even here, in the sanctum of privilege, Elise felt the creeping dread of Krossar's collapse, a gnawing unease that went beyond the ration cuts and whispered riots. Something was wrong within her own household, a shadow that moved behind her family's eyes. Her children, 3 sons and a daughter, had grown distant, their once lively debates over trade contracts and imperial tithes replaced by guarded silences. Elise had noticed it first at the last banquet, a hollow affair where nutrient paste was served on silver platters to maintain the illusion of abundance. Her eldest, Corin, had stared at his plate with an intensity that bordered on reverence, his fingers twitching as if tracing unseen patterns. Her daughter, Lyra, had excused herself early, her face pale, claiming illness, though her eyes held a strange, fervent light. Elise had dismissed it as the strain of Krossar's decline, but the unease lingered, festering like the rot in the planet's dead soil. The Imperium had abandoned them, deeming Krossar expendable, and now her family, her legacy, seemed to be unraveling from within. That night, driven by a mother's instinct sharper than any lasblade, Elise ventured into the estate's lower levels, where the family's private shrine to the Emperor stood. The chamber was a relic of better days, its walls adorned with frescoes of imperial saints, their faces worn by time and neglect. She lit a single loom candle, its flicker casting shadows that danced across the golden aquila above the altar. As she knelt to pray, her hand brushed against a loose panel beneath the shrine. Curiosity, or perhaps desperation, compelled her to pry it open. Inside, hidden in a recess, was a relic that froze her blood. A small organic idol, its surface slick and bulbous, etched with spiral patterns that seemed to writhe under her gaze. It was no imperial artifact. The markings, claws, eyes, too many limbs, screamed genestealer, a Xenos taint she had only read of in classified inquisitorial reports. Elise's breath caught, her heart pounding as she clutched the idol, its unnatural warmth seeping into her palm. She had studied the lore of the Tyranids in her youth, a requirement for nobles tasked with safeguarding Krossar's tithes. Genestealers infiltrated, corrupted, spread their curse through bloodlines, turning loyal servants of the Emperor into pawns of a hive mind. The idol's presence in her home, beneath the Emperor's gaze, was a violation beyond comprehension. She wrapped it in her shawl, hiding it from the shrine's accusing saints, and retreated to her chambers, her mind racing. Had the cult already taken root in the spires? Was her family compromised? Corrin's strange reverence, Lyra's fervent gaze. Were they signs of hunger or something worse? She locked the idol in a secure vault, its biometric seals keyed to her alone, and summoned her household guard. The captain, a grizzled veteran named Torres, reported increased unrest among the spire's nobles, whispers of secret gatherings, disappearances, and strange markings defacing private estates. Elise ordered a discreet investigation, her voice steady despite the dread coiling in her gut. As Torres left, she caught her reflection in the viewport. Gaunt, hollow-eyed, yet still standing, a matriarch unbroken by Krossar's fall. But the idol's warmth lingered in her memory, and with it, a question she dared not voice. Why did its touch feel so familiar, as if it belonged in her hand? The upper spires of Krossar's hive shimmered with an illusion of permanence, their lumens bathing the Varna state in a cold, sterile glow that failed to warm matriarch Elise's bones. She stood in her private study, the biometric vault containing the genestealer idol sealed behind a tapestry of the Emperor's ascension, its golden threads fraying like her resolve. The idol's unnatural warmth lingered in her memory, a sensation that gnawed at her as she pored over House Varn's ancestral records, searching for answers to the horror she'd uncovered beneath the shrine. Her family's lineage stretched back centuries, a proud chronicle of service to the Imperium. Yet now each page felt like a lie, tainted by the possibility of Xenos corruption. The air in the study was heavy, the hum of private generators a constant reminder of the privilege that separated her from the starving masses below. Yet even this sanctuary felt compromised, as if the walls themselves watched her. Elise's investigation into her family deepened her unease. Her eldest son, Corrin, had grown secretive, spending hours in the estate's lower levels, claiming to oversee the dwindling nutrient stores. His reports were vague, his eyes avoiding hers, and when pressed, he spoke of new alliances among the spire's nobles to survive Krossar's collapse. Her daughter Lyra had withdrawn further, her once sharp wit replaced by cryptic murmurs about dreams of unity and strength. Elise summoned Corrin to her study, confronting him under the guise of discussing trade ledgers. His demeanor was off, his movements too fluid, his smile too wide, as if masking something beneath his noble facade. When she mentioned the unrest in the spires, he deflected, speaking of a group called the Kin of the Spiral, a faction promising salvation through shared sacrifice. The name sent a chill through her. It echoed the spiral patterns on the idol, a Xenos mark she could not unsee. That night, Elise's dreams were plagued by visions, a multi-limbed shadow looming over Krossar's dead fields, its voice a chorus of her family's whispers, calling her kin. She awoke gasping, her skin clammy, the idol's warmth pulsing in her mind despite its confinement in the vault. She checked the biometric seals, untouched, yet the air felt charged, as if the idol's influence seeped through adamantium. Taurus, her guard captain, reported disturbing findings. The kin of the spiral had grown, its members including high-ranking nobles and even Adeptus Arbites officers. They held secret gatherings in sealed spire chambers, marked by the same spiral symbols Elise had found. Taurus showed her a confiscated data slate, its files detailing rituals of blood-sharing to strengthen the faithful against starvation. The language was fervent, almost religious, but its undertones reeked of Zeno's heresy. Elise ordered Corrin's quarters searched while he attended a noble council. Her guards returned with a hidden cache, scrolls inscribed with spiral runes, vials of a viscous, luminescent fluid, and a crude effigy mirroring the idol's design. The evidence confirmed her fears. Corrin was part of the kin, perhaps its leader in the Varn household. She confronted him at dawn, her voice steady despite the betrayal clawing at her heart. Corrin's response was calm, too calm, his eyes gleaming with an unnatural light. "Mother, the kin offer salvation," he said, his hands gesturing to an unseen presence. "The Imperium abandoned us, but the spiral endures. Join us, and you'll see." His words carried the same fervor as her dreams, and for a moment, Elise felt a pull, a longing to embrace the unity he described. She recoiled, ordering him confined, but his smile lingered, as if he knew something she did not. Alone, Elise examined the confiscated vials, their contents shimmering like the idol's surface. Her augmetic lenses, a noble's privilege, detected organic markers. Xenos, Tyranid in origin, likely Genestealer. The realization hit her like a lasbolt. The kin were a cult, and Corrin was its pawn. But the dreams, the warmth, the familiarity of the idol's touch, why did they resonate so deeply? She opened the ancestral records again, tracing her bloodline to Krossar's founding, searching for any hint of corruption. A single entry, redacted by inquisitorial decree, caught her eye. A Varn ancestor, exiled for unsanctioned experimentation, had vanished into the Underhive centuries ago. The record's seal bore a faint spiral mark, barely visible, as if etched in defiance. Elise's hand trembled, the idol's call growing louder in her mind, promising answers if she dared to listen. The Varn estate's opulent halls felt like a crypt, their gilded aquilas tarnished by the shadow of betrayal that clung to matriarch Elise's every step. The upper spires of Krossar's hive stood as a fragile bastion against the chaos below, but within her own household, the taint of the Genestealer cult, kin of the spiral, had taken root. Elise's hands trembled as she clutched the data slate, its screen displaying the redacted record of her ancestors' exile, the faint spiral mark a silent accusation. The idol locked in her study's vault pulsed in her mind, its warmth a siren's call that stirred memories not her own. Multi-limbed shadows, a chorus of voices promising unity, and a strength that defied Krossar's starvation. Her augmetic lenses flickered, struggling to focus as her organic heart raced, whispering a truth she refused to name. The taint was not just in her son, Corrin, but in her bloodline, buried deep in House Varn's legacy. Elise had confined Corrin to his quarters, guarded by Taurus and his most trusted men. But the estate felt alive with unseen eyes. Her daughter Lyra had vanished after their last confrontation, her cryptic mutterings about the spiral's embrace echoing in Elise's nightmares. The confiscated vials from Corrin's cache sat on her desk, their luminescent fluid shimmering with Zeno's life. Genestealer markers, confirmed by her lens's bioscans. She had ordered Taurus to expand the investigation, and his reports painted a grim picture. The kin had infiltrated half the Spire's noble houses, their rituals spreading like a plague. Arbit's officers, once loyal to the Emperor, now bore spiral tattoos, their eyes gleaming with the same fervor Elise saw in Corin. The upper spires, once a sanctuary, were a nest of Xenos corruption, and Elise stood at its heart, questioning her own sanity. She ventured into the estate's lower levels, seeking answers in the ancestral crypt, where House Varn's founders were interred. The air was cold, heavy with the scent of ancient stone and decay, the lumens flickering as if reluctant to illuminate the truth. Elise's footsteps echoed as she approached the sarcophagus of her exiled ancestor, its surface defaced with spiral etchings, barely visible beneath centuries of dust. She pried it open, her augmetic strength straining against the stone, revealing not bones but a sealed chamber. Inside lay a journal, its pages brittle, inscribed with ravings about a gift from the stars that promised resilience against Krossar's harsh founding. The final entry spoke of a pact: blood for strength, loyalty for survival, sealed with a Xenos entity that called itself the Spiral Father. Elise's breath hitched. The journal confirmed her family's lineage was tainted. The Genestealer curse, woven into their DNA, dormant until Krossar's collapse, awakened it. She returned to confront Corin, the journal clutched like a weapon. His quarters were a shrine to the kin, walls scrawled with spiral runes, vials of luminescent fluid glowing on shelves. Corin stood unbound, his guards slumped dead, their throats torn by claws too precise for human hands. His body had changed, his arms elongated, his fingers tipped with budding talons, his eyes glowing with the idol's light. "Mother, you feel it too," he said, his voice a layered hiss. "The Spiral Father calls us home. Our blood is his." Elise's augmetics flagged his transformation as Genestealer hybrid, but her heart saw her son, twisted by a legacy she had ignored. She raised her last pistol, a noble's heirloom, but hesitated, the idol's warmth flooding her senses, urging her to join him. Taurus burst in, his bolt gun raised, shouting of a cult uprising in the spires. Corin lunged inhumanly fast, his talons grazing Elise's arm. Pain flared, but with it came a vision. The Spiral Father, a monstrous patriarch, its multi-limbed form entwined with Krossar's elite, her family at its core. She fired, the lasbolt grazing Corin's shoulder, but he fled into the estate's shadows, his laughter a chorus of voices. Elise clutched her wounded arm, feeling an unnatural heat spread through her veins, her augmetics glitching as if rejecting her flesh. The journal's words burned in her mind. The Varn bloodline was not just tainted, it was the cult's foundation, and she was its unwitting heir, her resilience to starvation a gift from a Xenos god she could no longer deny. The Varn estate's gilded halls were a battlefield of shadows, their lumens flickering as screams echoed from the upper spires of Krossar's hive, where the kin of the spiral's uprising tore through the last bastion of imperial order. Matriarch Elise Varn stood in the estate's command chamber, her last pistol still warm from the shot that grazed her son Corin, now a Genestealer hybrid, lost to the Xenos taint. Her wounded arm throbbed, the heat from his talons scratched spreading through her veins, her augmetic lenses glitching with static that formed spiral patterns, echoes of the idol locked in her vault. The journal of her exiled ancestor burned in her memory, its ravings confirming House Varn's ancient pact with a Xenos entity, the Spiral Father, whose curse now awakened in her bloodline. Elise's reflection in the chamber's polished obsidian walls was a ghost of her former self, gaunt, hollow-eyed, yet alive when others starved. a resilience she now knew was no blessing, but a mark of her tainted heritage. Taurus, her guard captain, burst in, his bolt gun bloodied from skirmishes with cultists in the spire's lower levels. "The kin have overrun 3 noble houses," he reported, his voice grim. "Arbit's defectors lead them, armed with looted armories. They're chanting for the Spiral Father." Elise's mind raced. Corrin's escape had ignited the uprising, and the cult's influence was spreading faster than she'd feared. She ordered Taurus to rally the remaining loyal guards and seal the spire's access points, planning a purge to root out the kin before they consumed Krossar's elite. But doubt gnawed at her. The idol's warmth pulsed in her mind, and her arm's wound itched, the skin around it hardening, as if her flesh were reshaping itself. Her augmetics flagged anomalies in her biology, cellular changes, xenos in origin, suppressed until now by her noble conditioning. Elise led the purge herself, descending into the spire's ceremonial halls where the kin held their rituals. The air reeked of blood and ozone, the walls defaced with spiral runes that seemed to writhe under flickering lumens. Her guards moved in disciplined formation, bolt guns cutting down cultists, nobles and servants alike, their bodies twisted with genestealer traits, elongated limbs, clawed hands, eyes glowing with fervor. Elise's last pistol burned through a former trade envoy, his face half melted into a hybrid's maw, but each kill felt like a betrayal of her own blood. The journal's truth haunted her. House Varn was the cult's root, its taint dormant in her, until Krossar's collapse awakened it. She checked her arm, the wound now scaled, her fingers trembling as they brushed against budding talons. The purge reached the spire's grand atrium, where a grotesque altar stood, surrounded by kin, chanting in a language that twisted Elise's mind. At its center was Lyra, her daughter, her body a full hybrid, 4 arms, her face a mask of Xeno's devotion. "Mother, join us," Lyra hissed, her voice layered with the Spiral Father's will. Elise's augmetics screamed warnings, detecting a psychic pulse from the altar, where the idol's twin pulsed with light. The pulse stirred something in her, a longing to kneel, to embrace the unity her children had accepted. She fired, the lasbolt missing Lyra as Taurus tackled her aside, shouting of a greater threat. From the shadows emerged the Patriarch, the Spiral Father itself, a towering genestealer, its multi-limbed form radiating a psychic aura that bent reality, its eyes locking onto Elise as if recognizing its own. The atrium erupted in chaos, her guards falling to the Patriarch's claws, their bolt guns useless against its speed. Elise's wound burned, her augmetics failing as her body betrayed her, her vision sharpening, her strength surging, traits of the taint she could no longer suppress. She fought back, her last pistol searing the Patriarch's flank, but it laughed, a psychic chorus that called her daughter. Taurus dragged her to cover, his loyalty unwavering despite her transformation. "We burn it all," he urged, pointing to the altar. Elise nodded, knowing the cost. Destroying the Patriarch meant destroying her children, her legacy, and perhaps herself. As the spire shook, distant rumbles signaling the Imperium's orbital bombardment, Elise faced the truth. Her purge would either save Krossar's soul or doom it to the hive mind's embrace. The grand atrium of Krossar's upper spires was a charnel house, its marble floors slick with blood and littered with the broken bodies of loyal guards and twisted kin of the spiral cultists. Matriarch Elise Varn stood at the heart of the chaos, her last pistol trembling in a hand that was no longer fully human, scaled, clawed, a genestealer taint awakened by the wound her son Corrin had inflicted. The Spiral Father, the monstrous Patriarch, loomed before the grotesque altar, its multi-limbed form radiating a psychic pulse that clawed at Elise's mind, urging her to kneel, to join the unity of its hive mind. Her daughter Lyra, now a full hybrid, chanted at the altar, her forearms weaving patterns in the air, her eyes glowing with the same light as the idol Elise had locked away. The air thrummed with the idol's twin, its spiral runes pulsing in sync with Elise's heartbeat, whispering promises of strength, of belonging, that echoed her family's ancient pact. Her augmetic lenses flickered, corrupted by the taint spreading through her veins, showing visions of a Krossar reborn under the patriarch's will. Taurus, her guard captain, crouched beside her, his bolt gun empty, his face bloodied but resolute. "Matriarch, we end this now," he growled, clutching a plasma grenade scavenged from a fallen Arbit's officer. The atrium shook, the distant rumble of orbital bombardment growing louder, the Imperium's final solution to Krossar's collapse, erasing its failure in fire. Elise's wound burned, her body surging with unnatural vigor, a gift of the Genestealer curse that had kept her family alive while others starved. The journal's truth haunted her. House Varn was the cult's foundation, its taint woven into her blood, awakened by the planet's despair. She was not just fighting the kin, she was fighting herself, her legacy, her children. The patriarch advanced, its claws rending marble as it moved, its psychic voice a chorus in her skull. "Daughter, you are ours." Elise's augmetics failed completely, her vision now raw, enhanced by Xeno's senses that saw the patriarch's aura as a web binding the kin, her family, her soul. Lyra turned, her hybrid form radiant with devotion, and beckoned. "Mother, the Spiral Father is salvation. Embrace us." Elise's heart broke, but her resolve hardened. She fired her last pistol, the bolt searing Lyra's chest. But the hybrid only smiled, unyielding, as the patriarch's psychic will knitted her wounds. Elise screamed, her voice half human, half Xenos, as she charged the altar, Taurus at her side. The grenade's detonation was a supernova, obliterating the altar and its idol, the shockwave hurling Elise and Taurus against the atrium's walls. The patriarch roared, its psychic scream tearing through Elise's mind, exposing her fully to the hive mind's embrace. She saw Krossar as the kin did, a hive world reborn, its population one with the Spiral Father, feeding a distant Tyranid fleet. Her body convulsed, talons fully forming, her flesh merging with the taint she'd fought to deny. Taurus, wounded but alive, dragged her toward an escape shaft, his loyalty defying the horror of her transformation. "You're still Varn," he rasped, but Elise knew the truth. She was kin, her resistance a lie. As bombardment shells struck the spire, collapsing its gilded halls, Elise and Taurus reached a maintenance duct. The patriarch's presence lingered, weakened but alive, its psychic calls fading as the hive mind retreated. Elise's last act was to seal the duct, trapping herself inside to spare Taurus. "Tell them we fought," she whispered, her voice a hiss as the taint consumed her. The spire crumbled, the Imperium's fire erasing the kin's nest. But Elise felt the Spiral Father's laughter in her soul. She was one with it now, her family's curse complete. Her death not an end, but a beginning in the hive mind's eternal embrace.